can now cross live to Abuja, where the Nigerian Senate is set to screen nominees for key positions at the Central Bank of Nigeria, including Dr. Yemi Cardoso, who was appointed as the acting governor of the CBN by President Bola Tinubu. 4 deputy governors are also among the nominees.
Let me, on behalf of distinguished senators, welcome the proposed governor of Central Bank, the 4 deputies to this confirmation, screening, and hearing. It is not usual for the Senate to read the correspondence from Mr. President on the same day and take the nomination screening on the same day. But because of the exigency and the very crucial role that the Central Bank plays in the lives of all Nigerians, and particularly as a regulator of the Nigerian economy, we decided that with the information of the emergency resignation from office of the Central Bank and the 4 deputies, we cannot allow a vacuum. So the Senate had to resume today to try to sort this out for the interest of all Nigerians and for the benefit of all Africans. So you are welcome by taking the Central Bank proposed governor alone. So you will come in, you will introduce yourself, and let us know you. You will go a little bit into a summarized version of your resume, and thereafter you take questions from our distinguished senators. So I invite Yemi Cardoso to take the stage.
Okay. Mr. President, Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished Senator Goodwill Akpabio, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Ibrahim Jibrin, distinguished leadership of these hallowed chambers, other distinguished senators here present, ladies and gentlemen. I am indeed humbled to be here before you, standing as the nominee for the position of Governor of the Central Bank. My sincere appreciation goes to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The gravity of this moment is not in any way lost on me. I do not take lightly the confidence that has been reposed in me by the President through this nomination. I would also like to use this opportunity to recognize the senators representing Lagos State, Senator Toks Abiru, Senator Wasiu Eshilokun, and Senator Adebule for their kind support and encouragement, as well as extend thanks to the government and people of Lagos. Let me respectfully introduce myself. Is Yemi Cardoso. I was born 10th of July 1957. I'm an indigene of Lagos State. I'm born to parents of Brazilian descent in Poku Aguda. I attended primary school at Corona School, Ikoyi, and I went on to do my secondary school in Gregory's College, Lagos. I then went on for further studies to Birmingham. I attended the University of Aston, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree in managerial and administrative studies, specializing in finance and accounting. My further education was at the Harvard Kennedy School, where I earned a master's degree in public administration. And I specialized in I also bachelor's degree in business administration from my alma mater, Aston University. My professional career began in the vibrant city of London, working in a life take me to places I could only dream of. In 1981, Citibank, one of the world's largest financial institutions, recognized my potential At that time, that was the West Africa Regional Office for Citibank. And of course, I focused on debt restructuring and other places where Citibank did not have a presence in West Africa, which was most places, including Nigeria. In 1981, I returned to my home country and I took up an appointment with Chase Merchant Bank, an affiliate of Chase Manhattan Bank, which I know you all know. And then in 1982, 1984, I joined Citibank when they was at the time one of the founding staff of Citibank in Nigeria, then Nigerian International Bank. During this period of time, if you look at my resume, you'll see I did various diversified experiences. Subsequent to that, in addition to other there for 8 years as an executive director. Implemented. One of my time was, of course, setting up a brand new ministry from scratch which had no antecedent, and ensuring that the economy of Lagos was managed through this particular vehicle. I'm very happy that how many years later, virtually every single subnational entity within the Federation of Nigeria has copied this model. One of the groundbreaking efforts we had in this regard was the Engbeti Lagos Economic Summit. And I say this with all pride because till today, 20 years later, that particular entity as a major entity to articulate change within our society, and in particular to bring together the public, private, and other entities within and other interests within Lagos continues to thrive. In 2005, I returned to the private sector, where I continued to bridge the worlds of finance, governance, and public policy. Collaboration with esteemed international organizations such as the World Bank, the Ford Foundation, and the UN Habitat became a hallmark of this phase in my journey. From 2010 to 2022, I had the privilege of serving as chairman of Citibank, where I dedicated myself to enhancing both the financial and non-financial aspects of the institution. A highlight of my tenure was championing diversity and gender inclusion, resulting in a remarkable increase in the representation of women on the board from a mere 8% to an improved 50%. In September 2022, and I'll conclude with this, several months after stepping down as chairman of Citibank, I was given the Citibank Global and Ingenuity. This was the first time such an award had been given to anybody in Sub-Sahara Africa, in recognition of, I quote, "for outstanding contributions to business and society over the course of a distinguished career within Nigeria's private, public, and not-for-profit sectors, as well as academia, and for fostering the country's financial stability and development." May I please now say a few words of what I consider to be a preliminary assessment of the challenges facing the Central Bank of Nigeria as we hopefully commence the process of giving our input into this very, very important entity. The President, in his inaugural address, conveyed the need to clean up the CBN and its monetary policies. As a first step in this task, the President appointed a special investigator in the affairs of CBN, whose work is currently underway. Permit me, Mr. President, to use these preliminary remarks to outline the challenges facing the central bank, introduce high-level proposals to address reformation challenges, and discuss the roles of a refocused central bank in supporting the economic agenda of the President Tinubu administration. What are the current challenges the Central Bank of Nigeria faces? They are numerous. In assessing these challenges, the Central Bank of Nigeria, primary questions are being raised on how these challenges may be addressed, and I think that is what we are all interested in. One, we identify the issue of corporate governance and how will issues of corporate governance be addressed. We also identify the diminished institutional autonomy. How can public and financial system stakeholders' confidence be restored in the autonomy and integrity of CBN? Can the central bank look to adopting a worldwide code for institutional autonomy? We also look at the need to refocus CBN back to its core functions. What needs to be in place to revert to evidence-based monetary policies? Discontinuation of unorthodox monetary policies and foreign currency management. Unorthodox use of ways and means spending. What controls can CBN develop to enforce statutory limits in ways and means? Of course, backlog of foreign exchange demand and how this can be met, and the lack of clarity in fiscal and monetary relationships. Where are the delineations and what should be the limits in CBN's fiscal interventions? Of course, very importantly, the issue of inflation and price stability, a major question. What are the causes and what is CBN's proposed response to address inflation and price stability issues? We're also interested in access to foreign exchange markets and foreign exchange price discovery. What mechanisms exist to address foreign exchange rate unification under a willing buyer and seller arrangement? What would be the role of the central bank in the foreign exchange market going forward? Is there need for interest realignment to money supply, inflation, and market realities? Of course, very important was current financial system stability. Clearly, these problem statements need in-depth review by us and the central bank leadership to determine which mechanisms are currently working, what can be tweaked or dispensed with, and what new tools need to be introduced. Important to all of us, of course, is the element of economic growth, because please, can you hear? Okay. What is important to all of us is the element of economic growth. And our feeling is that in identifying the important issues with economic growth, we believe very strongly that size matters. Size matters. The economic policy proposals of the administration identify a set of fiscal reforms and growth targets that will achieve a $1 trillion GDP within 8 years. In reviewing selected growth targets that will achieve $1 trillion GDP, in reviewing selected BRICS and Mint countries with large populations and similar development characteristics as Nigeria, it is interesting to identify macroeconomic indices that point to Nigeria's economic trajectory, given faithful implementation of the proposed economic reforms. In economies bigger than $1 trillion, these indices include inflation, sizable foreign reserves, and capacity to quickly rebound from cyclical economic downturns. In other words, to the extent that the administration has defined such a bold target for the country, it is our feeling that achieving this is very critical to achieve the stability that we require in various economic indices. It's not the only thing, but it is very important. So we believe that this is the right way to go, and we endorse this. Given this, a refocused CBN will better serve the country through monetary policy interventions and advisory roles that sustain implementation of the administration's fiscal proposals. Advisory role of CBN made of past CBN forays into development financing, such that the lines between monetary policy and fiscal intervention have become blurred. In refocusing CBN to its core mandate, there is need to pull the CBN back from direct development finance interventions into more limited advisory roles that support. These advisory roles could include, for instance, 1, act as a catalyst in propagation of specialized institutions and financial products that support emerging sectors of the economy, facilitate new regulatory frameworks to unlock dormant capital, to consumer credit to the masses.
Yes, point of order, Senator Jaribe. What order?
Mr. President, we are limited to our perspectives. You gave the nominee a particular directive, what to adhere to, but what is given to us is a literature. We must limit to our perspectives. Bring the...
Come, Clark.
We must...
Senator Jaribe, please, what order? And you can read it out. Read it out.
Order 53-1. Any senator deviating from the provisions of these rules and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and any person here may be immediately called to order by the President of the Senate or the Chairman or by a senator rising to a point of order. Your Excellency, Mr. President, you gave the nominee a perspective to adhere to, and he has gone ahead to lecture us on certain things he considers necessary. For the purpose of this screen, I think we should adhere to what directive you gave to the nominee. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Jaribe, order 50 that you read to order 51, whichever order you use here. I've looked through. It talks about senator. The person standing in front of us has not contested election to be a senator. Point of order, dismiss. So the CBN nominee, most of the things you are saying are likely to be the concerns of the senators. So you take them seriously. Let them ask you the question, then from there you can elaborate. Thank you for your presentation. So I call on Senator Yari to ask the first question.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. My name remains Abdulaziz Abubakar Yari. I represent the good people of Zamfara West. No, not bandit, good ones. Mr. President, I'm from Zamfara State. Let me first congratulate the nominee of the Central Bank of Nigeria Governor, and also to use this opportunity also to congratulate other deputies. We probably make the Nigerian economy better. Mr. President, I have two questions to the Governor. Mr. Governor, if you are confirmed, what do you intend in this current situation we found ourselves in the issue of foreign exchange? It's very, very critical to Nigerian economy. And as you rate and your experience, there is high hope from you by Nigerians to make a Nigeria better and hope to come back, understanding from 2015, civilian governor, civilian as a body is becoming like only source of Forex, which is not supposed to be. So on that line, what do you intend to do? And what hope are you going to give our people in diaspora and other investors in the economy so that they can come with their Forex, with the new fresh money into the account for our Nigerian economy development? That's number one. Number two, intervention. Sometimes I used to get lost, or I used to ask questions where we are before in the National Economic Council, but sometimes the answer is not very, very, very clear to us, to many of us, including the Senate President when I was there too. A CBN operate on the same way, the pipe being regulatory kind of body of the banks as the commercial. Are there any way in the make profit? Because the way sometimes CBN operate and expenditure is only that if you are making business and making profit that you can do such things. So what do you intend to do? Intervention, also the budget process of the CBN. Intervention in the sense that is it only through the ways and means that you make your intervention, or are there any other ways CBN make money to make intervention, more especially in agriculture and other industries and maybe investment? So these are my questions to the Governor of the Central Bank. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, so we can have a bit of order. I believe that the incoming Senate Governor of Central Bank, if confirmed by these hello chambers, will be working as a team with his colleagues. So I would like him to take a seat. Let the other four deputy governors briefly introduce themselves. As your questions are coming, then they will decide who will answer best, because I believe they come from different disciplines. And this last question, please write it down. I'm trying to ask you that based on the kind of interventions or actions of the previous governors of Central Bank, where they were running a parallel government from the federal government Where did they get the funds from? Were they generated by them? Were they making profit? And if the CBN makes profit, does the profit belong to the governor of Central Bank to use as he likes? Or does it belong to the consolidated revenue account of the federal government of Nigeria? That's what Senator Yari wants to know. And I think it's also something that all the senators here would like to know. Because we hear of the CBN in agriculture, CBN in dam, CBN in construction of roads, CBN in tourism, CBN in purchase of plane, CBN in cocoa, CBN in building hostels in universities, CBN in building libraries, CBN in commissioning health centers, CBN in purchase of drugs, CBN. And so we would like to know from you, all these monies that CBN had been spending in trillions over the years, what kind of industry is CBN running to make those monies? Are those monies not meant to be appropriated by this chamber and by the National Assembly? Are they supposed to make profit and at the same time spend? And if they are making profit, what industries are they running? What nature of business is CBN engaging? The profit, does it belong to CBN? So please, it's a very loaded question. I would like you to take your seat, let your colleagues briefly introduce themselves so that all of you can decide on who best to answer the question so we can save time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, sitting as the chair of the Committee of the Whole. First of all, let me congratulate the nominees and also commend Mr. President for nominating them, particularly the youth among them, Mohammed Tijo, Bala, and also MM. These are young men and women that have been given the chance to help to serve this country. The fact that you are qualified is not in doubt. Acting Governor Cardoso, we all know about your exploits in Lagos, your pedigree, sound pedigree, and you are well qualified. You are all qualified. There's no doubt about that. But I just want to ask one question for the sake of the bank itself. As we speak, the former governor has been persecuted for infractions committed when he held sway as the governor of the Nigerian Central Bank. And, well, he's being investigated. If he's not prosecuted, he's being investigated prior to persecution. Obviously, because of infractions committed when he held sway. This infraction could not have been possible if the internal control mechanism of the bank was working very well. I have no doubt. I know you will do what is desired of you. How will you ensure that the internal control of the bank is strengthened in a way that such infractions will never occur again? Not only that, even our commercial banks, how are you going to make sure that their internal control mechanism will be up and running in order to ensure stability in our financial system? Thank you.
The floor is yours. After this set of answers, make them as short and concise as possible. Then we can give more colleagues opportunity to ask the last set of questions. Feel free to call any of your colleagues to answer the one you think you should assign to them. It's a teamwork.
Thank you very much, Senate President. And thank you, distinguished members. I will, in accordance with the President's directive, I will be short and sharp and answer a few questions, in particular, 2-3 of them that have come up continuously. And then, of course, I'll yield the floor to my colleagues to also chip in on others. The few questions I want to talk about is the issue of my person and whether my approach to handling the activities of the central bank, if so nominated. I'd also like to say a few things about one particular topic that has come up repeatedly in different forms, and of course that is exchange rate. And then also would like to say something about another thing that has also come up repeatedly, which is inflation, the high cost of goods. Okay. Now, in terms of the person you are considering for nomination to the position of governor of central bank, I want to emphasize that this is all I know, in the sense that my calling has been a calling of banking. My calling has been a calling of dealing with institutions that have a culture of compliance. Okay, so not only even in government, when I was in the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, I had a reputation for doing things properly. And I'm not about to compromise that reputation for anything. So if there's any doubt about that, I want you to dispel your minds of it. I am absolutely not prepared, and I have no intention of compromising that. Then, on the issue of foreign exchange rate, which everybody's been talking about, and naturally is very worrisome to everybody, very, very worrisome. It goes without saying, quite frankly, that for the sort of country we want, we do need to have an exchange rate that is stable. For a country that we all dream of, we need to have an exchange rate that is stable. And quite frankly, there are short and medium-term measures, but I would say something about the short-term measures, because that really is what bothers most people today, understandably. The medium-term measures have to do with balance of payments, and over a period of time, like the sort of things that are being done already with respect to ensuring that you're getting more petroleum resources and diversifying the economic base of the country. That, I believe, will continue by the present administration, and of course they take time. So I think we should take that as a given. The more immediate is what we need to look at. And my sense is that there are two very important issues that we would have to address when and if we are nominated by these hallowed chambers. Number one, it is that of what I would term an operational issue. Right now, you will have a situation where, and we all know this, we can argue about the figures, the numbers, but we are aware that there are obligations by the central bank. We are aware there are unsettled obligations. Whether it's 4 billion, 5 billion, 7 billion, I don't know. But definitely the immediate priority will be to be able to verify the authenticity and the extent of what is done. And then, of course, once we do that, we need to promptly find a way to take care of it. It will be naive for us to expect that we'll be making too much progress if we're not able to handle that side of the foreign exchange. Number two, apart from the operational, there's one that is more system related. Ensuring rules that are open, that are transparent, and the players in that business understands. We cannot reasonably expect serious foreign investors, portfolio investors, foreign direct investors, and now we're talking about short term, please. We cannot expect that those players who generally have an impact on your markets will do so if you do not have an open, transparent system that everybody understands and can rely on, and that is not subject to one day it is one way and the other day, the next day, you review without any notice. In setting up those guidelines, one will obviously carry relevant stakeholders along, and the comment was made earlier that be ready to engage people and to hear views. And that will obviously be one of the major objectives, to be able to get stakeholders together, understand where things are, and promptly, very quickly, come up with a strategy and a game plan that is well known to each other and then to everybody, and then it. So I believe that with those two things, though they may seem simple, but they are far less appealing. Those two immediate steps that we'll take will go a long way to ease the restrictions we're having right now in terms of people wanting to come in. Those that want to do business in Nigeria, they want to see that the coast is clear, to hold on to their money. So that's something that I want to share with you, so that you understand that this is the short-term measures are ones that will be very, very important to us, myself and the team. Getting is something we will address right away. Now, how soon that will be done, and matter, but I know that the impact will be such that we'll be able to have greater liquidity coming into the market, and the loss of the seeming withholding of confidence will come back in. So I thought I should mention that. Then, on the issue of inflation and the issue of cost of goods, another one that quite frankly should be worrying to anybody. And as members of these hallowed chambers, I know that you all see your various constituents regularly, and you'll be hearing a lot of complaints. Again, there are longer term measures, there are medium term measures, and I believe that some of those measures are being taken already at the fiscal side to at least rein home a lot of the things that had happened in the past. You look at the removal of oil subsidy, you look at the tightening up on payments being made on taxes, and a whole host of other areas. But in the short term, I want to explain that a couple of things will be very important to us. And I'm answering this question, I think I'll be answering one or two others. When you look at the dimension of inflation, just very quickly, the jury is out as to what the real components of inflation are. The jury is out. We certainly will be going to evidence-based monetary policies. We shall not be making decisions based on a whim. There will be need to significantly revamp the infrastructure in the central bank with respect to data and to ensure that our data and gathering capacity is significantly enhanced, so that we can make decisions based on proper data. That's your inflation. Inflation and the issue of price of goods, as I said, the jury is out. Some people will say it's structural, some people will say it's money supply, but let us say it's a combination of both. If indeed it is inflation, food inflation, we know what to do. We need to ramp up production of food. That's a given. We have to ramp up production of food. And that's an effort that the fiscal side will tackle and is tackling, and we would collaborate with them to ensure that that happens. If it is energy, we know the challenges of energy. That if you are importing things into the country which have an energy component, you automatically are importing inflation, okay, in some sort. So again, the whole objective of ensuring that the energy side of the country is ramped up, we also will work very closely with the fiscal side to ensure that that happens. Finally, the big issue that comes up many times is the issue of money supply. Now, I think we all know, and that's why I said I hope this answer will answer different questions. The issue of money supply and the way that money has gone up tremendously in Nigeria. That in its own has major effect on inflation, major. And I've seen some relatively reliable studies that have shown that in the past 10, 15 years, at least 50% of inflation in Nigeria has been as a result of money supply and budget deficits and deficit financing. Let me not say budget, deficit financing. So it is a problem. It is a big problem. At least it certainly has been over a period of time, and it's something that we have to face frontally. And I want to assure you that going forward from the Central Bank of Nigeria, we will do everything possible to ensure that we work closely with the fiscal side and ensure that, as you know, deficit financing does not become a problem for us. We cannot afford to have the big challenges had from budget fiscal, from deficit financing, which in effect has had the throwback that many of you here are concerned about. So I think that those are assurances I can give you coming from our side, that we will align on the collaborative working relationship and ensure that things do not get overheated or even get heated at all, because my view is that at this point in time we cannot afford these kinds of excesses that we had in the past. So I hope that answers that question. Then there's the issue of internal control of the bank. My answer is one. I believe that the central bank, under our watch, but to embrace a culture of compliance. A culture of compliance. And that goes for even the acts that we're talking about, because the question was asked, why is it that the 2007 Act was in place and yet people, breached it as they liked? We won't have that during our administration. We are not going to tolerate such. So we will not wait for oversight to come and tell us what to do. We will ensure that by the time the system is passing through us, we catch it and we deal with it. And we will have zero tolerance for abuse of compliance. That is a cultural shift, a change in mindset, but we will make sure it happens. We will definitely make sure it happens. And I also want to emphasize that one of those key mechanisms for oversight involves members of these hallowed chambers, where we recognize the fact that we have to work closely with these hallowed chambers to ensure that we deliver on compliance. We recognize that, and we will do that. We are clear as to what the Act says. We are clear as to how we need to visit the House and share the things we are doing, and we will do so, because now that there's a reset in the Senate, or we propose to have a reset in the central bank, we are hoping and we are appealing also to the members of these hallowed chambers to work with us, and we'll ensure that every 6 months, from what I gather, there has to be consultation, discussions with the Senate. Whatever the 2007 Act says, we need to comply with it. And that is the reason why I personally believe that that document is quite a strong, robust document. I feel that what has lacked there has been the issue of implementation and compliance. Fine, there may be rooms to talk about certain areas here and there. Yeah, and maybe it's a good enough time, although I think that the bigger issue, rather than looking at the document, is to ensure, okay, let us test this, see how the culture of compliance takes root in the central bank. So with those, I think I would like to yield over to my colleagues to take a stab at one or two other issues that have been raised. Thank you. Hello. I will try and quickly address some of the questions that have been raised that haven't been answered, and then those that we can't, like Mr. President has suggested, we have taken note and we will respond accordingly. Yeah. As he has said, we are new to we've not really set our feet in the central bank, so we need to collect the data and know exactly. Now, one of them again, and I believe was asked by Mr. President himself, and it was a question as to, one, whether I will allow myself to be hijacked by politicians, and two, whether the CBN under my watch will disobey orders to come. Now, number one, with respect to the hijacking by politicians, I said something earlier. Emphasize this. It is important that we who are being considered for these positions today understand that this is a position of trust. It's a position of great trust. And with that goes the huge responsibility to meet up to that trust. And I know that a lot of time and effort was gone into choosing the particular people who are standing here for nomination today. I know that. And as far as I am concerned, under my leadership, I will not be hijacked. The idea is to ensure that we do what is right, when it is right, and how it is right. We've seen what the effects of not doing things right have been, and Mr. President spoke about that earlier today. We've seen that, and we do not intend for that to be repeated. Secondly, on the issue of not obeying CBN's, I beg your pardon, of not obeying the hallowed chambers' requests for conversations. Frankly, I have absolutely no doubt that that has got to be part of the engagement that has been spoken about earlier. And apart from that, it is actually in the law. The law specifies that such dialogue should take place twice a year. And as I said, with the resetting of the central bank, ensure that we do not run foul of the law. So I don't want anybody to feel that we would knowingly disobey the law. We would not. In fact, knowingly or unknowingly, we realize that it is our duty to ensure that we obey the law. And it goes back to the issue of culture of compliance. Culture of compliance. We are going to ingrain a culture of compliance within the central bank. There will be zero tolerance for not complying with orders. And I can assure you that that tone will be fully set from the top. That, again, I will remind you that in my career, in my lifetime, that's all I've been used to. I've been used to doing things properly, and I've been used to obeying rules and regulations as they've been carefully thought out and have been implemented. Another question that came out was the issue of the chairman of the central bank holding both roles of chairman and CEO together, and whether this was the appropriate thing to do or whether it should be reconsidered. Now, my perspective on that, quite frankly, is as follows. Number one, and again, please take it from somebody who has served on boards worldwide, considerable boards over the years. I've had a amount of high-level corporate governance experience. I think that a lot depends on the people that are selected to come on boards. Very important. And we will ensure that we get the best people to join us on those boards. This should not be a mere academic exercise. We will look for the best people who can offer the right advice, who have the right qualifications, who can contribute selflessly, and who themselves can say no. So it's not even say no to others. It is everybody on that board being independent-minded enough to say it exactly as it is. That's number one. Number two is that this particular issue that has been raised, I'm aware, is global practice. If you go to the United States and you go to England and many parts of Europe, I don't know the other, but I certainly know in the UK, that is what obtains. And to the best of my knowledge, it works well, largely with the view that it's an attempt to maintain the independence of that particular very important entity. And let's not fool ourselves. The issue here is that we are building an institution. We're building an institution back to what we know it has been. And when we talk about central bank infraction here, corporate governance didn't work, this didn't work, I want to tell you that from my perspective, there are people within the central bank, much as the institution itself may have had its own issues, but there are people who have seen it being what it truly was. There are people there who have served for decades and have seen that institution what it really was at its peak. They will look for those who are good to join that thinking and begin to change the mindset of others who don't really, or who have been used to doing it differently. So it's a crusade, and I'm very certain that we will survive on that crusade and we'll be successful, because the future of Nigeria rests on it. I believe very strongly that some very, very critical decisions have been taken already that is taking Nigeria in the right direction. It is now our own duty to validate on those very, very important initiatives that nobody has been able to do before. Nobody has been able to do before. To the extent we are now on that road, we will not waver and find that we do not accomplish the giant strides that have already been taken. Then, of course, an issue that came up severally was the issue of bank charges. And I agree, it's something that we will certainly look into. I mean, we've all had one way or the other been part of the receiving end of that. Then, the issue of Anchor borrower, how do you track them down? Again, you know, we need to really look at those numbers and understand what the composition really is, okay, before we can take any action on that. The questions that have been asked are very good, very helpful, and to be frank, much as this hallowed chamber, distinguished members of this chamber may feel come to interrogate us and all that, I want to tell you that we have also benefited tremendously from hearing the quality of and being ready to go back to ensure that we can put them into use where we need to and revert where we don't have the answers. I will just conclude by saying that, by thanking the members of these hallowed chambers. It's been a very, very useful encounter. And I believe very strongly that in the process of resetting and rethinking, reshaping a central bank, the confidence building. Transparency and accountability comes under that. To be able to build that confidence that many people here spoke about. When you spoke about the fact that Naira was going down, you're concerned about the value of the Naira, and I tried to explain that. And once we can build confidence back through good corporate governance, culture of compliance, I'm certain that we are headed in the right direction, and the pains that many Nigerians have felt over the years in due course will be something of the past. Thank you very much.
Let me, on behalf of the 10 Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, thank the nominees for exhaustively answering most of our questions, and to urge them that the ones you could not proceed answers immediately, as you get into office, you try to get something back to us, because it's a learning curve, and we are very interested in getting the situation out of the doldrum. So thank you so much. You may now step forward and take leave of the Senate, one after the other. Distinguished colleagues, having concluded the screening exercise, I want to put the question. The Senate nomination of Mr. Yemi Cardoso for appointment as Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Yemi Cardoso is hereby confirmed as Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria.